seek the truth. So I think a word that you could describe about how Democrats will go forward in this regard is we will be very strategic.
Former Speaker Pelosi insisting that her party will be strategic when Democrats take control of the House in January. But some new signs suggest that that may be not exactly the case. Axios reporting today that Democrats are readying a subpoena cannon, kind of like the one that shoots T-shirts into crowds at the games. Boom, 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 all around. There's one for everybody. And the list, when you look at it, I mean, it really covers pretty much everything and everyone in President Trump's life. Look at this list. There's 85 things on here. It covers almost everything since day one, and Jared Kushner's up there, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the list, and it goes on and on. So, as I said, it's comprehensive, shall we say. Here now, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst. Judge, good to see you tonight.
Likewise,
what do you think of the stuff on that list?
Well, I think the Democrats have 2 goals. One is to preoccupy him, the president, and the other is to run shadow investigations of what Bob Mueller is investigating. Because whereas Mueller must keep secret matters he presents to the grand jury, the Democrats will be able to pick and choose what they want to leak and what they want to announce. What is the goal of this? To wreck the president's presidency, to drive him crazy. I've been talking to Democrats all weekend. They believe that they have a mandate from their base to attack the president, to investigate rather than legislate. You and I were together when you and Brett Baer on election night were interrogating Ed Rundell. Brilliant guy, former governor of Pennsylvania, mayor of Philadelphia, chairman of the Democratic National Committee. He said it's a no-brainer. If they want to win in 2020, they have to legislate, not investigate. We're getting the opposite today.
Yeah, it's interesting because the people who've been around a long time learned that lesson the hard way during the Clinton investigations, that it turned out not really working well for Republicans in the end.
Newt Gingrich will agree with you.
Yeah, he will. Here's a couple more sound bites from the weekend with regard to Matt Whitaker. Watch this.
There are serious constitutional arguments that as a principal officer, he cannot be appointed to this position.
He's already prejudged the Mueller situation. If he stays there, he will create a constitutional crisis.
That he should never have been appointed, and that it does violence to the Constitution.
Violence to the Constitution. So, and I should mention that Jerry Nadler, the incoming House Judiciary Chairman, basically said that the first priority, the first witness on January 3rd will be, they will subpoena Matt Whitaker, who has been put at the DOJ. He wasn't on the subpoena list, but he's definitely in there.
They're going to ask him, did you ever discuss the Mueller investigation with the president before he made you acting attorney general? There's a very strong argument that he does not qualify for acting attorney general. The 2 controlling statutes say the next person in line when the attorney general is gone is the deputy attorney general, who would be Rod Rosenstein. If the president
witness
wants,
potentially in this investigation,
agreed.
I mean, that seems like a pretty logical reason for it not to be him.
If the president wants to bypass him, he may, but he can only go to someone who has a job in the Justice Department that was appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate, and Whitaker does not fall in either of those categories.
Okay, so Noel Francisco would fit that bill.
Yes, he
would.
Why
wasn't he chosen?
I don't know, and he would be a superb choice who would be welcomed by both sides of the aisle. He may be there before Christmas, because the heat from Whitaker may be heat the president doesn't want to deal with.
But there is one line in the statute that says it can be someone who has worked closely with the attorney general for some time.
Yes.
And this is the chief of staff.
Which Matt Whitaker has. But the 2 absolute requirements in both statutes are presidential appointment, Senate confirmation. He had one 10 years ago, but he has to have one at the time of his designation, which he doesn't.
Judge, thank you.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
What happens. Thanks, Judge.
All the best.
Well, Democrats, fresh off winning back control of the House, are reportedly preparing a subpoena cannon in a major push to investigate President Trump.
Now that the Democrats are going to be in the majority in the House, they have a number of tools at their disposal, including the subpoena power.
We could subpoena the final report. We could subpoena Mueller and ask him in front of the committee, what was in your final report?
Democrats will go forward in this regard as we will be very strategic.
So are subpoenas the only priority for Democrats, or will the new Congress try to legislate as well? Here to react, former intelligence officer Don Bramer. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for having me.
So what about this, the subpoena cannon? You actually say that Republicans shouldn't be too surprised about it.
Well, no, this is almost exactly what happened when the Republicans took back the House. But what they've got to look at here is the Democrats ran on this new plan, health care, rebuilding infrastructure, which I think is doing quite well, and the economy. So if they're going to have legislation to do what they say, then let's do that and not get into this whole dragging it down with the subpoenas, which I think they want to do just so they can control the narrative for the next 2 years.
And controlling the narrative, controlling the headlines, how would that benefit them if they really don't even make any progress on it?
Well, they might think it'll benefit them, but actually if you won't, this could be the shortest lived majority we've seen in history because, you know, we still have a strong Republican hold on the Senate. And if Democrats control the headlines, keep moving forward with this subpoena cannon, the American people are not going to like it. They're going to get very upset with them, and it'll backfire just like we saw with when the Republicans tried to impeach Clinton, years ago.
And it also backfired somewhat with Kavanaugh.
It did. It did.
And what happened leading into that?
And a lot of people were very upset, and that's why many of the states that went from red or from blue to red were because of Kavanaugh. And I think Democrats need to understand that lesson.
Mm-hmm. In terms of that, we want to switch gears now and talk about what is happening with Vice President Mike Pence. He's over in Japan. He's headed to Singapore right now. We actually have some new sound from him, I believe, speaking about North Korea. That's one of the main topics that he's addressing. Listen.
President Trump believes his relationship with Chairman Kim is good. As we speak, another summit is being arranged. And as I assured you, Mr. Prime Minister, the pressure campaign will continue. And the sanctions will remain in full force until we achieve the final, fully verified denuclearization of North Korea.
Is North Korea conning the United States?
I don't think you could actually call it conning. This is a very long process, and for some reason, a lot of folks think that this is just going to happen overnight. Let's take example the North Korean armistice for years ago. That took 2.5 years, 188 meetings. We're only a year and a half into this. When President Reagan was dealing with Russia in the early 1980s, that took us all the way back to almost a decade. So why we think this can happen right away, I really don't know where that
the difference is? The difference is because of the availability of news today and this immediacy. And we're so, we're kind of in tune as to what's going on minute by minute.
Well, absolutely. And let's look at the good of this. The missiles have stopped. We got hostages back. The remains are being exchanged. Mm-hmm. I take these as all good signs. We're still talking, and that's something that we haven't been able to do for decades under any previous administration. And as long as the folks at the State Department and the CIA continue to have this ongoing dialogue, I see that as a good sign, and there's going to be back and forth. Just yesterday, they announced that the Pentagon might consider restarting the two operations, Key Resolve and Foal Eagle, next year. So we're showing our strength and showing our science. So I don't think it's a con job. It's just going to be a little bit of give and take back and forth, and that's what we have to do.
And you also mentioned there's a very key difference between promising to denuclearize and promising to disarm.
This whole process, we were looking to denuclearize the peninsula. Never have they ever said they were going to disarm. You can't ask a country to give up the entire ability to defend itself. And I think especially as paranoid as that culture is, that's something we just can't expect.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll see what happens.
All right.
Okay.
Well, some reports about the White House and likely fake news, but we thought we would explore this with you. President Trump's rising frustration with White House Chief of Staff John Kelly and Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen apparently is rising still. In addition, the top deputy to National Security Advisor John Bolton, Mira Ricardel, is in some jeopardy apparently because of clashes with First Lady Melania Trump and her staff. Now, I find the latter one to be amazing. Stephanie Grisham, the First Lady's Chief of Staff, saying that Ricardel no longer deserves the honor of working in the White House. That sounds like a very significant problem, doesn't it, for Ricardel? If her understanding of power is so limited that she would take on the president's wife, maybe she didn't belong in national security at all, but certainly not in the Trump White House. We'll see what happens. Joining us now to take this up and possible high-level changes following the midterms, Niger Ennis, the national spokesperson for the Congress on Racial Equality. Great to see you, Niger. Gina Loudon joins us as well, political analyst, member of the President's Media Advisory Board, author of the terrific book, Mad Politics, which we recommend to you highly. Great to see you both. Gina, let me start with you. How could someone involved in national security not understand power to the degree that they would work pretty hard not to offend the First Lady?
Yes, I can't imagine, Lou, that you would want to offend the First Lady. And the First Lady seems to me to be somebody with an exceedingly high level of tolerance for people who are critical or bombastic in a myriad of forms, especially the media. And so I'm a little bit surprised by this story as well. But I think that the left sort of leaps onto these stories, Lou, of palace intrigue, which I don't think are all that intriguing in a lot of cases, because this is a president who works people 20 hours a day. We know this, Lou. And so we shouldn't be surprised, especially right after midterms, that there are going to be some changes.
There are going to be some changes, and particularly when the First Lady's Chief of Staff releases a statement saying that someone doesn't deserve to be in the White House, it rises above the usual reportage of the fake news. Don't you think, Niger?
Absolutely. I think Rick Cardell is gone. I think it is absolutely abysmally foolish on her part to, from what I understand, the squabble was over seating on the plane to Africa when the First Lady went to Africa, which is absurd. And it is not wise to get into a fight with the First Lady of the United States. I think Kelly has been rumored to wanting to leave and that Trump wants him out. I'm not so sure how true that is.
No, I
think Kelly has been a very stable force within the administration. If he decides to go because of just timing, that's fine. But I think his tenure was a very solid tenure. He brought a great deal of stability and normalcy to the White House. And I think regardless of personality conflicts that might have existed between him and the president, it seemed to have worked out very well for this administration. Nielsen, on the other hand, I think there's a little bit more to that rumor. There are a lot of folk, perhaps you, Lou, certainly our buddy Ann Coulter, and others that had real doubts about Nielsen being Homeland Security Secretary, being strong on immigration and on building the wall. And it's been expressed and reported that the president has been very frustrated with her lack of aggression in dealing with the illegal immigration problem. So I think those rumors could very well be true. And like Gina said, it's not unusual that there be turnover in the administration.
There's nothing unusual, but all of the reporting today is worthy of note. Gina, I want to turn to you. You know Palm Beach. And Palm Beach and Broward counties are acting like their history. They're reenacting it. They've got huge problems. You were down at the Board of Elections. What do you think?
Yeah, I was at Palm Beach County today. I will be at Broward County tomorrow morning. My husband has actually done the official watching of it, and so I'm quite, I know more about this, Lou, than I ever wanted to know, let me assure you. The chain of custody is really the problem here. There is a lot of fraud that takes place before the ballots ever hit, right? Before they're ever actually all in this massive warehouse that we're looking at now. But even in this massive warehouse, Lou, you should know that Republicans are cordoned off by the supervisor of elections to this tiny little section and not allowed to be in any other part of this massive warehouse where all of these ballots sit. So when they come back out to be counted or to be evaluated or judged in their court there, it makes you wonder where they've been, who's had their hands on them. Now, they'll tell you there are sheriffs around, and there are.
Who is putting up with a Board of Elections that would do that? I mean, I'm sure the Republican Party has some high-powered attorneys there. And by the way, they do control the governor's office. Why not move in and take control of this thing? Why would, Niger, why would anybody put up with that in either party?
I think that is absolutely the question. I don't understand how the heck Snipes not only got appointed to the position in Broward County, but after getting smacked down.
Talk to Jeb Bush.
Yeah, and after getting smacked down by several judges for mixing legitimate provisional ballots with illegitimate ballots, being
destroying
questioned
ballots?
several times, destroying ballots. I say, how did this lady keep her position? How the heck is she in this powerful position? The other question is...
Let me answer that question. That's Governor Rick Scott, who chose not to do anything.
Which is unfortunate. The obvious question, there were a tremendous hurricane that hit several parts of Florida, several counties, including counties in the Panhandle. Somehow they were able to get in their provisional ballots, their regular ballots in, and Broward has mysteriously coming up with new votes.
Niger, and by the way, that's one of Matt Gaetz' great tweets talking about the counties that were hit by hurricanes and had no problem making the deadlines. Niger Ennis, great to see you. Gina Loudon, great to see you.
Grandstanders at a dinner table, grandstanders on a TV show. I try to let people make their point on TV now. I mean, sometimes I interrupt, but I really try to let people have their say. It's things I've had to train myself. I've had to train myself, and I'm not successful all the time, but you really need to let other people speak, especially when you're dealing with the President of the United States. Let him answer the question. Then you get one follow-up. And if he decides to give you another question, more power to you. No problem. I don't think Trump... Remember that press conference he did? Where was it, guys? Was it in... Yeah, it was in New York after the UN. Remember that press conference? And it was during Kavanaugh. Remember, he answered every question. There were very tough questions. But it was a well-run press conference. He didn't shy away from answering tough questions, nor did he snap at people. He kind of had some fun, but he didn't snap. So that's fine. But what happened with Acosta was just appalling. And the president should not reward that type of behavior with a hard pass to the White House. The man has some kind of issue, that Acosta. Fix your issue and then come back and be a reporter. But if you want to be a pundit, go be a pundit. I'm tired of all of this. I think it's a big waste of everyone's time.
Absolutely. And Laura, I mean, as you know, the amount of access that Trump gives the press it just blows Obama out of the water. When he just the other day, I guess Friday, when he was walking to his plane, I thought to myself, just if he's just standing there for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes taking questions.
It was like another press conference.
Yeah. And then do you remember after he went to North Korea, or went to Singapore rather, and he came back and he gave a 30-minute interview to Fox and Friends, and then he took another 20 minutes of questions from the press corps just on his way back into the White House. Yep. I mean,
he's made himself very available.
He's very accessible.
I mean, they're mad that he doesn't give in and just say, please, please stop. Oh, yes, you're right, Jim. Great point.
You're right. The caravan's not an invasion, even though,
right. Yes. Right. Jim, you're right. It's not an invasion. So Jim Acosta gave his opinion. Let's play it again. Like Raymond made us play that again on Friday on the Ingram angle and the extended Friday Follies we ran on the Ingram angle on Friday, specifically about the caravan.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly,
that's not an invasion.
I think you should let me run the country.
Yeah, that's
you
it.
run
Okay.
CNN.
So when he says that's not an invasion, he's giving his opinion. Americans coast to coast, many of them believe, I bet half the country at least believes it's an invasion. And by the way, another one is forming in Honduras. So we got multiple caravans. Mexico, certain states in Mexico are now providing transportation up to Texas. This is going to be a big problem. Oh, but you're leaving the military, and the military's camped out at the border, and you're taking them away from their families. How many of you think the Democrats are all worried about the military? They were fine about defunding the military for years. We're supposed to believe the press cares about the military being camped out at the border. 855-40 Laura. It's just absurd. Bill in North Carolina, line 1. Bill.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for keeping your sense of humor. Truth and humor is the only way we're going to get through
It
this.
is. You need to laugh. I'm
Jim
telling you.
Acosta is a child in a playpen throwing a temper tantrum because President Trump won't be steamrolled. That's it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, he really does remind me of my kids in a way. Like today, I got up early and I made my kids eggs. I do this egg, kind of burrito thing. And we didn't have any bacon. We were out of bacon, so I just did cheese and little onions. And anyway, and I have a tortilla. So Dimitri says, "Mom, I want the pancakes. The pancakes in the box," which I can't even believe we have those, but we do. So he eats like 3 of those, and he's skinny as all get out. Dimitri, he's got to eat more. He is a skinny mini. He's so skinny. So I said, "Okay, you want pancakes and eggs? Great." So I make the eggs, excuse me. He's already eaten half the pancakes. He said, "Well, can you do the tortilla separate from the eggs?" Okay, all right. Short order cook here. Just separate. Put it separately on the plate. And then he looks at it and he said, "Nico touched my plate. Maria's staring at me." They do this thing. Maria's staring at me. Nico touched my plate. I'm like, oh my gosh. I just made exactly what you wanted, and now he's not going to eat it because Nico went to the bathroom and didn't wash his hands. But I'm just saying, it's like Acosta. It's like being a little kid. Doesn't get his way, and he's complaining. Meanwhile, Trump said, bring on some tough questions, no problem, but this has got to stop. 855-40 Laura. Obama's judges continue to thwart the president's agenda. I did an angle on this probably a year ago, and it's only gotten worse with the Keystone Pipeline. We'll see what happens with this. If you're not registered properly in your current state, then guess what? You're casting an irregular vote. It's an illegal vote. So no, every vote does not count. Only votes that are legally cast count. But that's not what Abrams is saying. She's saying, let every vote count. No, that's very interesting, is it not? So a federal judge, speaking of Obama's judges, a federal judge rules to protect provisional ballots. Lauren Groh-Wargo, Abrams' campaign manager, announced that Judge Amy Totenberg's decision came out late yesterday, reported that the judge's 56-page ruling could affect thousands of provisional ballots. So this Judge Totenberg is an Obama appointee. Brian Kemp won by more than 50% of the vote, meaning there is no recount. He won by more than 50% of the vote, but Abrams will not concede. Of course, if it was McSally not conceding, then they would trash her on MSNBC. But because McSally conceded in Arizona with her dog next to her, I have a question. Does the dog make you more credible? Sitting there with a dog. I mean, I love dogs. I love dogs. But why are we conceding with the dog? The dog didn't run for office. We don't need to see the dog. I mean, God bless the dog. I love dogs. But it's crazy. Boomer